Hello, I'm Claire Jewitt, and this is the diary of an orange cat. The diary entries of a thoughtful, slightly neurotic ginger cat living in a small harbour community in New Zealand. Last time, the local cats gathered at the Godley House grounds for a musical event called Live at the Point. This week, events take a rather unexpected political turn. Serafina has decided that what Diamond Harbour needs is a formal system of government, complete with a cabinet and ministerial portfolios to guide the local cat community. As it turns out, appointing yourself leader is one thing, keeping the job is quite another. Here is Party Games. I have never entirely understood why humans insist on putting themselves into groups called cabinets. In my experience, cabinets are places where Mummy stores things that she doesn't want me to play with. Still, there does seem to be something rather appealing about having a title and a portfolio. Education sounded quite promising. Cats can't read or write, which struck me as being a distinct advantage. It seemed unlikely that I'd be expected to do any actual work. I had absolutely no ambition to become leader. As every cat knows, leadership generally involves responsibility, difficult decisions, and attending meetings. I've come to dislike meetings. Wednesday, 29th of March, 2023. In a strange way, I think Serafina almost enjoyed the pandemic because it put her in the limelight, but now that crisis has died down somewhat, she spends most of her days watching the television and surfing the news posts on social media. This is always a dangerous thing. Our weekly meetings are now being held at her house, where she addresses us from her podium, and it's no longer just Ron, Squeak and me in attendance. There are now almost a dozen domesticated locals, and even a handful of ex-feral cats who, thanks to the local Diamond Harbour Cat Rescue Group, have been house-trained and tamed and are now being integrated into the local cat community. Tonight's meeting began as usual, with Serafina sanitising her paws and giving us what we've come to know as her death stare.
Tēnā koutou katoa.
We heard the now familiar flapping sound as Lewis made a beeline for the cat door and ran home. The cat door continued to flap as Serafina droned on. However, the impact of the pandemic continues to cause concern across the globe. Add social isolation, disrupted work and family routines, cabin fever and economic instability, and it's understandable that there's a lot of fear, uncertainty and anxiety amongst the local cat population. What we need is a structured system of governance with teams of cats led by dedicated experts to guide us through. With this in mind, I suggest we form a sort of cat cabinet and assign portfolios to certain senior cats in our group. These cats will oversee matters such as health, education, law and order, housing, conservation and the environment, domestic violence and that sort of thing. Serafina continued, directing her death stare rather ominously at Ron, Squeak and me. What about kitten welfare? Suggested Spook, one of our newer members. And dog control, cut in Cookie.
We need to get tougher on these gangs of feral cats,
grumbled Smoky O'Neill. I will appoint our cabinet before the end of the week. Then, as though she realised she needed to be more inclusive, she hurriedly went on. Of course, everyone can make submissions as to what cabinet post they feel that they would be more suited to, and we can go through the
charade of consultation,
whispered Squeak, although obviously not quietly enough. The process of democratically voting for each candidate, said Serafina waspishly. We all went home to think about our potential portfolios. I was underneath the house, trying desperately to meditate on the issue, when Squeak turned up with Ron, who had a large bag of catnip in his mouth.
I don't like the look of any of these positions,
said Ron, who had brought round a list of the suggested portfolios and the responsibilities attached to each individual post.
I don't even want to be in a stupid cupboard or whatever it is. Oh, come on, it might not be that bad. Chance to give back to the community and all that,
said Squeak.
Besides, most of these positions look to me as if there wouldn't be too much work involved. I think with my background, I should go for the arts and culture post.
I think I'll go for education, I said bravely. It should be easy, considering cats can't read or write.
Yes, but education to Seraphina could mean anything, said Squeak somberly. It could mean sex education, which could put you slap in the middle of having to negotiate with the feral cat population. You could end up trying to educate the cats of Diamond Harbour how to identify native birds. Then you'd have to teach them to overcome their overwhelming hunting instinct so that once they realise it's a native species, they'll go home and play with some stupid plastic mouse toy.
Oh, God, I hadn't thought of that. I shivered at the thought of trying to tell the feral cats to do anything they didn't want to do. What do you want to do, Ron?
I'd like to have kittens,
he said, helping himself to a large pawful of catnip. I wondered if he realised this meant dealing with the final product rather than the act of creating a kitten embryo. Thankfully, we only had until next week to find out our fate. Wednesday, 5th of April, 2023. We gathered at Seraphina's house this evening and nervously waited for the big reveal. The meeting began with Seraphina on her podium, addressing the audience in her usual way.
Tēnā koutou katoa.
This was followed by the inevitable sound of the cat door flapping, as Lewis once again made his misguided and desperate dash toward freedom. I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude for all those cats who have selflessly stepped up to serve in our newly formed cat cabinet. Your commitment to the community is truly commendable. After considering all the applications and counting the votes, I'm proud to announce that our first cat cabinet is filled with a wealth of talent and experience. This is a true testament to the dedication and passion of our feline citizens. As we embark on this new chapter, I have every confidence that our cat cabinet will bring fresh perspectives, innovative ideas, and an unwavering determination to serve our community. Together, we will tackle the challenges ahead and continue to build a stronger, more united community. I'm excited to work alongside this diverse and capable team, and I have no doubt that they will make a positive impact on the lives of all cats. Let us come together and support our cat cabinet as they lead us towards a brighter future. Thank you, and let's move forward with... I won't bore you with the entire speech. After the meeting, we had drinks and nibbles, and then held our very first caucus meeting, which was nearly as boring as Seraphina's speech. It goes without saying that Squeak and Ron came round to my house after the meeting was adjourned.
Typical of her to go through the pretence of getting us to vote for the candidates when she'd ended up making the final decision herself, grumbled Squeak.
I thought you wanted arts and culture, I said.
Yes, but I didn't want to get sport as well.
The idea of Squeak getting involved in any sort of sport sent Ron and me into a fit of the giggles. Squeak looked rather hurt, and Ron quickly said,
We're only laughing because everybody knows cats do nothing that remotely resembles sport. Unlike dogs who make fools of themselves by chasing balls and supporting the human requirement that states that they must regularly partake in organised walks, where they subject themselves to having their excrement bagged, examined, labelled, and they even go swimming,
wailed an appalled Squeak. Seraphina has taken on the dog portfolio. I'm sure she can introduce the necessary reforms to resolve any potential cross-species misunderstandings that may exist, I said, taking on a confidential tone and attempting to make quotation marks in the air with my claws, something which I don't think I quite pulled off. She lives with a toy poodle called Madeline who identifies as a cat. Perfect if we want to achieve our aims in that regard.
Seraphina's also appointed herself as leader and given herself the COVID-19 response portfolio, said Ron. Although that COVID business seems to be pretty irrelevant now.
Exactly, there'll be no work involved in that at all. Cookie, on the other hand, will have a work cut out for her with kitten welfare and housing, I said, and then added,
I think Spook really wanted to have kittens, but I'm sure she'll do domestic violence well, and Prudence is sure to put her heart and soul into transport. Not sure about Snowflake getting justice, though. Wasn't she the one who nicked all that stuff and put it underneath your house? The one we called Hypo? Probably should have called her Klepto, I replied. Smokey O'Neill will sort her out. He's got law and order. She's given foreign affairs to our big brother Winston. I'm pretty sure this is because she won't have to see him very often. He's also in charge of something to do with horses. Yes, I remember him saying that this wasn't his first rodeo, said Squeak sagely. Well, I've got education along with the deputy leader position. I puffed my chest out ever so slightly and added, almost as an afterthought, what have you got, Ron? Health, declared Ron, as he generously offered catnip around to the group. Thursday, 13th of April, 2023. I think we've all settled into our new positions rather well, even if I do say so myself. Then, 8 days into our new regime, disaster struck. I was underneath the house working on a draft proposal to reform the education system in line with changing societal needs, when the entire cabinet burst in unannounced and totally put me off my stride. This must be something serious. Even Seraphina had taken time out from her busy schedule to make the journey from her house. What's happened? I said, gazing at their stricken faces. There has been a very damaging leak that has put my position as leader in jeopardy, wept Seraphina. What? Said Squeak. I think you'll find it's jeopardy. I think you'll find it's in the Peninsula Post, said Ron, tossing the latest issue into the centre of the group of cats now known as the Cabinet. It's not so much a leak, remarked Squeak, as a true representation of the unrestrained merriment that took place in Diamond Harbour on that particular evening, said Smokey O'Neill with a pompous self-righteous air. Of course, I myself wasn't involved. Because you weren't invited, whispered Ron. No, because someone bashed me on the head and then dragged me into the car and took me to Mochi Carrara, where I was held hostage for several months, Smokey O'Neill replied indignantly. I could see why Seraphina had given him the law and order portfolio. Even if he could be rather grumpy and pompous sometimes, I like Smokey O'Neill. Stories of Smokey's kidnap were the stuff of legend around the harbour, and if he hadn't been microchipped, well. What are we going to do about this? Cut in Cookie, holding up the latest edition of the Peninsula Post, which bore the headline, The Party's Over, Seraphina. The article included a collage of pictures taken at a somewhat impromptu party we'd had at the isolation flat when we were in the middle of the COVID crisis. Worse still, some upstart journalist with an eye for scandal had dug up photos of Seraphina comatose amid a box of empty gin bottles. Someone at the party must have leaked, said Squeak. But we had a dirt box, said Seraphina meekly. Dirt box is a very apt description, I said. There were loads of cats at that party. Even the volunteer fire brigade was there, and I can't believe any of them would have let the cat out of the bag. Would the heckers like, said Smokey O'Neill. Not the volunteer fire brigade. They would have let sleeping dogs lie. And speaking of dogs, my sources have revealed that there were dogs at that party. I don't think we need to look any further for our leak. If any of you have read the cabinet manual, I think you'll find... I'm going to have to resign, or worse still, apologise, said Seraphina grimly. I can't see how I can talk my way out of being seen to have held a party during lockdown. I must pass the baton to Weasley, because I've got nothing more left in my toolbox. Not enough tools in the tank, not enough dirt in the dirt box. The team of 5 million believe that they've been intentionally misled and have turned toxic. Weasley, I think that you should take over as leader and take on the COVID-19 response portfolio. Smokey O'Neill can have dogs. I know it's not ideal, but these are unprecedented times. A great weight seemed to fall down upon my shoulders. I didn't know how to deal with this newfound authority, yet managed to make my first leadership decision with some degree of authority. I propose we hold weekly cabinet meetings at my house every Tuesday afternoon. Perfect, said everybody as if in one voice. See you next Tuesday.
That was Party Games. As Weasley discovered, political careers can change very quickly. One day you're discussing portfolios and enjoying drinks and nibbles with your colleagues. The next you're unexpectedly in charge of an entire community and wondering quite how it all happened. Join us next time as Weasley settles into his new role as leader of the local cat cabinet. Until then, from Weasley, Seraphina, and all the cats of Diamond Harbour, thank you for listening.